Lena Monroe stood frozen in her kitchen doorway, watching Jason methodically pack Claire's lunch with the same precision. He used for everything else measured portions, neat compartments, not a crumb out of place. 8 months had passed since she'd asked him to sign the divorce papers, and still they sat unsigned in his briefcase, a constant reminder of the control he refused to relinquish. "You don't have to do that anymore," she said quietly, watching him fold the sandwich wrapper with hospital corners. "I can handle Claire's lunch." Jason looked up with that practiced smile that had once charmed her, but now felt like a mask. "I'm still her father, Lena. Just because you wanted to throw away 12 years doesn't mean I stopped caring about the details that matter." The phrase stung because it was calculated too. Jason had perfected the art of making her feel selfish for wanting freedom, guilty for choosing her own happiness over the illusion of their perfect family. He never raised his voice, never made scenes, just wielded disappointment like a scalpel. Precise and devastating. "Mommy, Daddy made my sandwich look like a butterfly." Claire bounced into the kitchen, her 5-year-old energy cutting through the tension like sunlight through storm clouds. She grabbed her lunchbox and hugged both parents before skipping toward the door. "Mrs. Peterson says butterflies mean transformation." After Claire left for school, the house fell into its familiar, suffocating quiet. Lena poured coffee she didn't want and stared at the architectural plans spread across her dining table at community center. She was designing for underprivileged kids. The irony wasn't lost on her. She could design spaces for others to heal and grow, but couldn't seem to escape the confines of her own marriage. "I saw the Hendersons at the grocery store yesterday," Jason said, settling into his chair with his own coffee. "They asked about us. I told them we were working through some rough patches, like all couples do." Lena's grip tightened on her mug. "We're not working through anything, Jason. We're separated. You're supposed to be looking for your own place." "I am looking." His voice held that patient tone reserved for unreasonable children. "But good apartments take time to find, and Claire needs stability during this adjustment period." The word adjustment hung in the air like smoke. That's what Jason called their divorce: an adjustment, a phase, a temporary inconvenience that would pass if he just waited long enough and remained reasonable enough and made himself indispensable enough. Lena gathered her plans with sharp, efficient movements. She had a client meeting at 9, then a site inspection at noon. Work was her sanctuary now, the one place where her decisions mattered, and her voice carried weight. "The papers are still in your briefcase," she said without looking at him. "My lawyer says if you don't respond soon, we'll have to move to the next phase." "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact." She paused at the door, seeing her reflection in the hallway mirror. Tired eyes, sharp cheekbones more pronounced than they used to be, blonde hair pulled back in the same practical ponytail she'd worn since Claire was born. When had she started looking like someone playing the role of herself? "I'm not trying to hurt you, Jason. I'm trying to survive. We could survive together. We used to be good at that." For a moment, Lena felt the familiar tug of guilt, the voice that whispered maybe she was being unreasonable, maybe she should try harder, maybe she was destroying something precious for selfish reasons. But then she remembered the feeling of drowning in her own life, of smiling at dinner parties while dying inside, of lying awake next to someone who knew every fact about her, but understood nothing about who she was becoming. "I have to go," she said, and walked out into the California morning, leaving Jason with his perfectly organized breakfast and unsigned papers. At her office, Lena spread the community center plans across her drafting table and tried to lose herself in clean lines and purposeful spaces. But Jason's words echoed in her mind. Just because you wanted to throw away 12 years, was that what she was doing? Throwing away something valuable? Or finally admitting it had been broken long before she found the courage to say the words out loud? Her phone buzzed with a text from her sister. "How are you holding up?" Lena stared at the message for a long time before typing back, "Still holding." The morning started like any other until Lena's receptionist buzzed through the intercom with barely contained excitement. "There's someone here to see you. He says his name is Eli Torres, and that you knew each other a long time ago." Lena's pencil froze mid-stroke over her blueprints. "Eli Torres." She hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in over a decade, but it still hit her like a physical force, a collision with a version of herself she'd almost forgotten existed. "Send him in," she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. When Eli walked through her office door, time seemed to fold in on itself. He was older, of course, silver threading through his dark hair, lines around his eyes that spoke of years spent in challenging places but fundamentally unchanged. Still tall and lean, still carrying himself with that quiet confidence that had first drawn her to him during their medical school rotations when she was still pre-med, before architecture called to her more loudly than medicine ever had. "Lena." His smile was tentative, warm. "You look exactly like I remembered, but somehow more yourself, if that makes sense." She stood, suddenly aware of her appearance in a way she hadn't been in years. "Eli, what are you? I mean, it's wonderful to see you, but I know this is random. I'm sorry for just showing up like this." He stayed near the door, as if ready to leave if she showed the slightest discomfort. "I'm back in San Diego. Just took a position at Mercy, General Head of Emergency Surgery. I've been thinking about reaching out for months, but I wasn't sure if you'd want to hear from me." The history between them filled the space, their intense relationship in their 20s, the plans they'd made, the ring he'd given her, and then his acceptance to Doctors Without Borders, and her inability to follow him into that uncertain world. They'd been so young, so sure that love should be easy, that the right person wouldn't require sacrifice. "Of course I'd want to hear from you." The words came out more honest than she'd intended. "I've wondered how you were, where you ended up. Doctors Without Borders, right? Did you ever make it to all those places you dreamed about?" His face lit up. "Syria, Afghanistan, South Sudan, Haiti after the earthquake. 15 years of the most exhausting, heartbreaking, meaningful work I've ever done." He paused, his expression shifting. "I got married along the way, another doctor. We worked together in refugee camps for 8 years, but..." He shrugged with practiced casualness that didn't quite hide the pain. "Some partnerships work better in crisis zones than in suburban kitchens, turns out. I'm sorry, don't be. We're better as friends now. She's in Seattle. I'm here, clean slate for both of us." He gestured toward her desk. "But enough about me. Look at this place. You became an architect after all. I remember you talking about designing spaces that could heal people, make them feel safe." Lena felt something unfamiliar stirring in her chest, pride in her own accomplishments, seen through the eyes of someone who remembered her dreams. "I specialize in community spaces now. This current project is a recreation center for at-risk kids." She found herself moving toward the plans, animated in a way that surprised her. "The idea is to create environments that feel like sanctuaries, places where healing can happen naturally." Eli moved closer to examine her work, and she caught a hint of his cologne, different from what he used to wear, but still distinctly him. "This is incredible, Lena, the way you've designed these sight lines, the natural light flow. You really did it. You're changing lives with these spaces." When was the last time someone had looked at her work with such genuine admiration? When had Jason last asked about her projects? Beyond the basic logistics of deadlines and client meetings, "Would you like to get coffee?" The question slipped out before she could stop it. "I mean, just to catch up properly. There's a place down the street that makes terrible coffee, but has great pastries." Ellie's smile was answer enough. 2 hours later, they sat in the corner booth of Murphy's Cafe, their conversation flowing like no time had passed at all. Eli told her about performing surgery in a tent during a sandstorm, about the children he'd helped, about learning to find hope in impossible places. Lena found herself talking about Claire, about her work, about the satisfaction of seeing her designs come to life. What she didn't mention was Jason, or the divorce papers, or the feeling of being trapped in amber while life moved on around her. Some topics felt too heavy for this fragile, unexpected gift of reconnection. "I should get back," she said finally, though she didn't want to. "I have a site inspection this afternoon." "Of course." Eli stood, then hesitated. "Lena, I hope this doesn't sound presumptuous, but you seem different from how I remembered. Stronger, more sure of yourself. It suits you." Walking back to her office, Lena caught her reflection in a storefront window and was startled by what she saw. A woman, smiling, her posture straight, her eyes bright with something that looked remarkably like joy. When had she last felt this alive, this present in her own skin? Her phone buzzed. A text from Jason: picked up groceries, making dinner tonight, Claire's favorite. The message should have felt loving, considerate. Instead, it felt like a gentle trap, another way of making himself indispensable while she waited for him to set her free. But for the first time in months, Lena realized she wasn't just waiting anymore. Claire Monroe had her mother's stubborn streak and her father's attention to detail, which made losing her at the farmer's market both predictable and panic-inducing. One moment she was examining organic strawberries with scientific intensity, and the next she had vanished into the Saturday morning crowd. Lena pushed through the maze of vendors, calling Claire's name with increasing urgency. This was exactly the kind of scenario Jason would use as evidence of her inadequate parenting. Another reason why their family needed to stay intact. Why she needed his steady presence to keep their daughter safe. Claire Monroe, is this yours? Lena spun around to find Eli Torres crouched at eye level with her daughter, his hands gentle on her shoulders. Claire looked up at him with the kind of immediate trust that 5-year-olds reserve for truly safe people. I found her by the honey stand, Eli explained, standing as Lena rushed over. She said she was looking for the lady with the butterfly cookies for her mom. Mrs. Yamamoto's stand is 3 rows over, Lena said, her heart still hammering. She knelt down to Claire's level. Baby, you can't just wander off like that. I was so scared. I'm sorry, Mommy. But look, Claire held up a small jar of wildflower honey. The bee man gave me this because I knew that worker bees are all girls, Eli laughed, and the sound sent an unexpected warmth through Lena's chest. She's brilliant. We had quite a conversation about bee hierarchy while we were looking for you, Claire, studied Eli with the frank curiosity of childhood. Are you Mommy's friend? We knew each other a long time ago, Eli said carefully, glancing at Lena. Before you were born. Are you married? Claire, Lena warned, but Eli seemed amused rather than uncomfortable. Not anymore. Sometimes grown-ups decide they're better as friends than as married people. Like Mommy and Daddy? The words hung in the air like a challenge. Lena felt heat rise in her cheeks, but Claire continued with the relentless logic of childhood. Daddy says they're just having a rough patch, but Mommy cries sometimes when she thinks I'm not looking. And Daddy sleeps in the guest room now. Claire, that's enough. Lena's voice was sharper than she intended. Why don't you go find Mrs. Yamamoto's cookies? I'll be right there. After Claire skipped away, Ellie's expression was carefully neutral. I didn't realize you were married. Separated, Lena said quickly. In the process of getting divorced. Actually, it's just complicated. Complicated how? The simple question unlocked something in Lena that had been sealed tight for months. He won't sign the papers. Keeps saying we need to try harder, that Claire needs both parents, that I'm being selfish. He's not wrong about some of it. Divorce is hard on kids, and maybe I am being selfish for wanting to be happy instead of just functional. Eli was quiet for a moment, watching Claire examine cookies with scientific precision. Can I tell you something I learned in the refugee camps? Lena nodded. The most dangerous situations weren't always the obvious ones. The bombings, the violence, the chaos. Sometimes the most dangerous situations were the ones that looked stable on the surface, but were slowly poisoning everyone involved. Clean water that was actually contaminated. Shelters that looked secure, but had structural damage that would collapse eventually. He turned to face her fully. People stayed in those situations because they looked safe, because leaving felt like the riskier choice. You think my marriage is contaminated water? I think you know better than anyone what your marriage is. Claire came bounding back with a butterfly-shaped cookie and an enormous grin. Mr. Eli, do you want to see the rest of the market? There's a man who makes music with vegetables. If it's okay with your mom, Eli said, looking to Lena for permission. What followed was an hour that felt stolen from some alternate version of her life. Eli listened to Claire's endless chatter with genuine interest, bought her a small succulent because she said it looked lonely, and somehow managed to make Lena laugh more than she had in months. He lifted Claire onto his shoulders so she could see the vegetable musician, and Lena watched her daughter's face light up with pure joy. "He's nice," Claire announced as they walked back to the car. "And he smells better than Daddy." "Claire, what? Daddy always smells like that computer stuff. Mr. Eli smells like outside and soap." That evening, as Lena tucked Claire into bed, her daughter asked casually, "Is Mr. Eli going to be around more now?" "I don't know, baby." "Why?" Claire considered this with 5-year-old seriousness. "Because you smiled different today, like the way you smile when you're drawing your buildings." But even more, later, alone in her kitchen, Lena stared at the wildflower honey Claire had left on the counter. Such a small thing, but it felt significant. Somehow sweetness found unexpectedly, a gift discovered while lost. Her phone buzzed. A text from Eli. "Thank you for letting me crash your Saturday. Claire is wonderful, smart, and funny, and clearly gets both from her mom. Hope to see you both again soon." Before she could second-guess herself, Lena typed back, "We'd like that." From upstairs came the sound of Jason's key in the front door. He still had his key, still showed up when he wanted, still treated her space as partially his own. But for the first time, his arrival felt like an intrusion rather than an inevitability. The honey caught the kitchen light like liquid gold, and Lena realized she was still smiling. The change was subtle at first. Lena humming while she worked, taking extra care with her appearance, checking her phone more often. But Jason noticed everything, cataloged every deviation from the routine they'd established during their months of separation. "You seem different lately," he said over dinner the following Tuesday. They still had family dinners twice a week. Another one of his gentle insistences that felt less like consideration and more like surveillance. "Different how?" Lena asked, helping Claire cut her chicken. "Happier, I guess, more energetic." He paused, studying her face. "It's nice to see. Maybe this break has been good for you after all." The words carried their familiar double-edged acknowledgement wrapped in ownership, as if her happiness were something he could take credit for, as if the break were his idea rather than her desperate necessity. Claire piped up between bites, "Mommy has a new friend. His name is Mr. Eli, and he knows all about bees. And he lifted me up really high at the farmer's market." Jason's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "A friend?" Lena felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Someone I knew years ago. He's back in town, working at Mercy General." "Years ago how?" The question hung in the air, loaded with implications. Jason's voice remained perfectly calm, but Lena recognized the sharpness underneath, the same tone he used with difficult clients. Polite but probing. "We dated in our 20s, she said simply. "Before I met you, I see." Jason resumed eating with mechanical precision. "And you've been seeing him?" "We've had coffee once and ran into each other at the farmer's market." Lena found herself defensive, though she had nothing to defend. We're not, you don't need to explain." Jason said smoothly, "It's natural to reconnect with old friends, especially during times of transition." But something in his demeanor had shifted, a subtle tightening around his eyes that Lena had learned to recognize over 12 years of marriage. Jason was processing, calculating, preparing his next move. Later that evening, after Claire was in bed and Jason had reluctantly returned to his temporary apartment, Lena's phone rang. Ellie's name on the screen sent an unexpected flutter through her chest. "I hope it's not too late to call." His voice warmed through the speaker. "I was thinking about what you said the other day, about designing healing spaces. I have a proposition. I'm listening. Mercy General is expanding the pediatric emergency department. We need someone who understands how to make clinical spaces feel less terrifying for kids and families. The administration asked me to recommend an architect." He paused. "Would you be interested in putting together a proposal?" Lena sank into her couch, phone pressed to her ear. "Are you serious?" "Completely. Your portfolio speaks for itself. And after seeing how naturally you connected with Claire at the market, you understand what kids need. You get how space affects emotional healing." They talked for 2 hours about sight lines and color psychology, about creating pockets of calm within medical chaos, about the way natural light could reduce anxiety in waiting families. Lena found herself sketching ideas even as they spoke, her mind racing with possibilities. "I should let you go," Eli said finally. "But Lena, this could be something really special. I know you're the right person for this project." After hanging up, Lena stared at her rough sketches, feeling something she hadn't experienced in years, pure professional excitement untainted by compromise or committee approval. This was work that mattered, work that would use every skill she'd developed, work that felt like calling rather than just career. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Lena opened her front door to find Jason standing on her porch with coffee and bagels. His expression carefully neutral. "Thought we could have breakfast," he said. "Talk about some things. Claire's already at school. I know. I wanted to talk to you, alone." They sat at her kitchen table like polite strangers, Jason arranging his bagel with surgical precision, while Lena waited for whatever conversation he'd rehearsed. "I've been thinking about what Claire said yesterday," he began. "About your new friend." "Jason, let me finish." His voice remained calm, but his hands were tense around his coffee cup. "I know I haven't been perfect through this process. I know I've been resistant to the changes you want. But I've been hoping we could find our way back to each other." Lena felt the familiar weight of his expectations, the gentle pressure that had defined so much of their marriage. "But seeing you lately," Jason continued, "seeing how you light up when you talk about your work, how you smile now, I realize I haven't seen that version of you in years. And I have to ask myself why." The admission hung between them, more honest than anything he'd said in months. "Maybe I've been holding on so tight because I was afraid of losing something I'd already lost," he said quietly. "Maybe I've been trying to keep you in a version of our life that stopped working for you, long before you had the courage to say so." Lena stared at him, searching for the manipulation she'd grown accustomed to, but finding only exhaustion and something that looked remarkably like genuine regret. "What are you saying?" Jason reached into his briefcase and pulled out a manila folder, the divorce papers, she realized, still unsigned, but present. "I'm saying maybe it's time I stopped making this about what I need and started thinking about what you deserve." He didn't sign them then, didn't make any grand gestures or promises, but something fundamental had shifted in the space between them. A recognition that their marriage had become a beautiful prison they'd both been afraid to leave. After he left, Lena called Eli to tell him she wanted the hospital project more than she'd wanted anything in years. "I'm glad," he said, and she could hear him smiling through the phone. "I have a feeling this is going to be the beginning of something important." Lena wasn't sure if he meant the project or something else entirely, but for the first time in months, she found herself looking forward to finding out. Lena woke early on Thursday morning to an unusual sound silence. No coffee maker gurgling from Jason's early routine, no shuffling footsteps in the hallway, no careful orchestration of Claire's morning schedule. For 8 months, he'd maintained his presence in their morning rituals, a gentle reminder of his indispensability. But today, the house held only her breathing and Claire's soft snores from the next room. She padded downstairs in her pajamas, expecting to find him waiting with breakfast prepared and papers organized. But the kitchen was empty, except for a manila envelope on the counter next to her coffee maker. With trembling fingers, she opened the envelope. The divorce papers fell out, each page signed in Jason's precise handwriting. No note, no explanation. Just the legal dissolution of 12 years folded neatly inside a photo album she recognized there. Engagement photos, their wedding day, early pictures of them young and laughing and unaware of how complicated love could become. Lena sank into a kitchen chair, holding the signed papers against her chest. Freedom felt different than she'd imagined, not triumphant or relieving, but quietly profound, like the moment after a fever breaks when you realize you can breathe clearly again. Her phone buzzed, a text from Jason. "The papers are signed. My lawyer will file them today. I think we both deserve to be happy, even if it's not together. Take care of our girl." She stared at the message for a long time, then typed back, "Thank you," to simple words that carried the weight of forgiveness and gratitude and the end of something that had once been love. An hour later, Claire bounced downstairs in her school uniform, chattering about a science project on butterfly life cycles. "Mrs. Peterson says butterflies completely dissolve inside their cocoons before they become new," she announced, spreading peanut butter on toast with 5-year-old concentration. "Like, they turn into soup and then become something totally different." "Metamorphosis," Lena said, watching her daughter's face bright with discovery. Meet a more fo sis. Claire repeated carefully, "That's a big word for becoming yourself." After dropping Claire at school, Lena drove to Mercy General for her first official meeting about the pediatric emergency department renovation. The hospital's sterile corridors felt full of possibility. Rather than intimidation, every wall a potential canvas for healing, every corner an opportunity to create comfort within crisis. Eli met her in the lobby, professional in his white coat, but with that familiar warmth in his eyes, ready to change some lives. The meeting exceeded every expectation. The hospital board loved her initial concepts, approved her budget proposal, and asked her to begin immediately. As she gathered her materials afterward, Eli walked her to the parking garage. "There's something different about you today," he observed. "You seem lighter somehow." Jason signed the papers, she said simply. "It's official now." Eli stopped walking. "How do you feel?" Lena considered the question seriously. "Like I can breathe again. Like I've been holding my breath for years and finally remembered how to exhale." "And Claire? How is she handling everything?" "Better than I expected. She's resilient, adaptable. I think kids sense authenticity more than adults do. She seems happier when I'm happy, even if the situation is complicated." They reached her car, and Eli hesitated before speaking. "Lena, I want you to know that reconnecting with you has been unexpected. I came back to San Diego thinking I knew what this chapter of my life would look like. But you've reminded me that the best things usually happen when we're not planning them." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'd like to take you to dinner. A real dinner. Not coffee between old friends catching up. I'm saying that working with you on this project feels like the kind of collaboration I've been looking for my whole career. I'm saying that watching you with Claire at the farmer's market made me remember what it feels like to be around someone who makes ordinary moments feel extraordinary." Lena felt her heart speed up, not with anxiety but with anticipation. "Eli, I'm not asking you to figure out everything right now," he continued. "I know you're just starting a new chapter and Claire needs stability. But I'm asking if you'd be interested in exploring what this could be, without pressure or timelines or expectations, beyond seeing where honesty takes us." Looking at him, really looking, Lena saw not a rescue or an escape, but a genuine partnership. Someone who valued her intelligence and celebrated her ambitions and understood that love should add to your life rather than require you to diminish yourself to fit within it. "Yes," she said simply. "I'd like that very much." 6 months later, Lena stood in the newly opened pediatric emergency wing, watching children play in the healing garden she'd designed. Soft colors and natural light transformed what could have been a sterile medical space into something that felt like hope. Claire sat on a bench nearby, sketching the butterfly mural Lena had commissioned for the main wall, a massive piece depicting metamorphosis in vibrant, joyful colors. Eli found them there as his shift ended, still in scrubs, but smiling with the satisfaction of lives saved and healing facilitated. "How was your day?" he asked, kissing Lena's forehead before ruffling Claire's hair. "Good," Claire announced. "I drew 17 different butterflies. And Mr. Peterson at school said my science project was the best one, because I explained that butterflies don't just change, they become completely new, while still being themselves." "That's very wise," Eli said seriously. "Some of the best transformations work exactly like that." As they walked out together, not a traditional family, but something new and authentic and chosen, Lena reflected on the unexpected paths that had led them here. Sometimes the end of one story was simply the beginning of another, and sometimes the courage to let go of what wasn't working created space for what could flourish. The evening sun caught the hospital's windows like gold, and Lena realized she had never felt more herself than she did in this moment, standing between her past and her future, holding both with grateful hands. A question for reflection: when someone we love refuses to let us go, whether from genuine care, fear of change, or need for control, what do we owe them versus what we owe ourselves? Is it possible to honor the history of a relationship while still choosing our own happiness? And how do we know when staying becomes more harmful than leaving, even when leaving might hurt people we care about?